Previously, on my West Coast road trip, I spent too much time getting out of Ontario and was dealing with car issues, so I had to rush through the prairies to make it to BC on time for my friend's wedding. Then spent 5 days exploring BC and hanging with friends and family. It was a nice break from the road, and up to now, I got to experience so many wonderful moments and places. But that came to an end as I packed up my car and got back on the road to head home. I had a bit more time to make it home, so I had all these plans to explore national parks, to take it slow, but that quickly became a pipe dream as things took a turn for the worse and all my plans went out the window. I'd only made it a few hours on the road when all of a sudden my car stalled out and I had to pull over to the side of the road. If you had watched the first video of the series, you might remember that I had had issues with my fuel pump system, and it seems that this problem had just got worse. Luckily though, my sister had prompted me to purchase a CAA membership prior to leaving, so I was able to call for a tow. But it was a busy travel day and there was limited tow truck drivers available, so I ended up sitting on the side of the highway for 5 hours before I was finally rescued. It was hot, it was boring, not even a pretty spot to be stuck in, but I wasn't hurt and help did finally arrive. This was the moment I found out that I could only go a maximum of 200 kilometers on a tank of gas, as my car would not let me put in a full tank anymore. Of course, this meant I never did make it to Revelstoke that day. Instead, I stopped at Kamloops and reevaluated the rest of my plans for my journey home. Because I had lost 5 hours of driving that day, I had to make it up the next one. So I had to miss out on stopping at Yoho National Park as well, so I could get back on track and be home in time for my shift on Saturday. I started on the road early to make it to Moose Jaw that night, and as I drove through the national parks, I was heartbroken, and I grieved the time I lost in these spectacularly beautiful spots. It was stunning to drive through, but it was really hard to just keep driving and not stop. I was starting to feel defeated as the sun began to set behind me, and I still had a couple hours to go. The beauty of the fields of Saskatchewan and the glow of the setting sun gave me a boost of energy though to finish the very long driving day. And about at 9:30 that night, I finally made it to Moose Jaw, checked into my hotel, took a shower, and hopped into bed. I was so sore and tired. I left early again the next morning because the drive was taking longer than it should due to all the extra stops I had to make to fill up with gas. After how hard the day before was though, I decided to reduce the amount of kilometers I would drive that day and cut 2 hours off the drive. I still planned to make it to Ontario, but not as far as originally planned. I didn't bother with any attractions on the way and just got to driving again. Spent so much time in that morning in tears as I laid out my frustrations and disappointments before God and reflected on the way the trip had went, the things I missed out on, unmet desires, and what I was heading home to. I really have a lot I need to work through, and these long days on the road were prime for such a journey. The drive went pretty smoothly though, and I made it in good time. I arrived at Erin Provincial Park that night at 7:30, which was just enough time to set up my car for the night, which took a lot less time than the first attempt did, and find the water so I could watch the sunset. Arriving at a decent time and being in such a beautiful place really healed my defeated mood. Being by the water and sitting and watching the sun descend upon the lake was soul reviving. This view was so much better than any I had had from hotel rooms and gave me a new appreciation for this camping thing. I had set out on this journey planning to car camp the majority of the way, but it just hadn't worked out as well as I had hoped it would, until now. After such a great night, I felt like I may have missed out on some amazing nights because I chose the easy and convenient, which is another lesson for me I needed to learn. I like easy, I like convenient, but effort seems to pay off more than convenience ever really does. Or at least they have different kinds of payouts. Once the sun set, I made my way back to my site and showered and climbed into my cozy backseat bed to get some much needed sleep. I actually slept pretty well and woke up rested. I got on the road early again because today I could actually make a stop. Originally, I had planned to stop at Kakabeka Falls Provincial Park the previous night, so I could both camp and see the falls at the same time. I'm still glad, though, that I had cut the trip short and stayed at Erin Provincial Park instead, because I really loved my time there. But I'm also glad I was still able to fit the stop in this day. It was gorgeous. The falls were stunning, and just getting a chance to walk around and watch the power of the water falling over the edge was just refreshing. My car troubles weren't over yet, though. As I drove into my last gas station of the day, just 1 hour from my campsite for the night, I got a flat tire. A truck driver filling his rig on the other side of the tanks noticed for me and made me aware. So I filled up gas and moved over to the side. As I was taking all the stuff out of the back of my car, because the tire was underneath all my crap, a group of young men who had just gotten off their shift or training shift, the township or a park close by, came over and offered to help and changed my tire for me. It was really sweet, and the experience left me grateful for the kindness of strangers and these divine appointments that I have been having along this entire trip. Even with the delay, though, I made it to Pancake Bay Provincial Park by 7:30 and again was able to set up and make it to the beautiful water for sunset. I fell in love more with car camping that night and began to plan out how I might be able to do this more in the future and the things I would need to change about my setup for it to work better. This park was busier and it was larger, but I still got a large chunk of the beach to myself, and it was just magical and I didn't want to leave. I'd actually slept well that night again, even slept in, which was nice. It was okay though, because I didn't have as long a day ahead of me. This night I was staying at a friend's, so I headed straight to her house in Perry Sound. We swam in a lake, talked for hours. She made me a yummy Cambodian curry dish for dinner, and we sat around the campfire chatting for quite a while that night. It was really nice to be able to talk to someone who understood a lot about what I had been going through, and being able to catch up with someone I had not seen in years. The next day I got on the road early again, being a little over 5 hours from home, and having such a challenging trip. I was ready. I was ready to go home. As I came closer though to Algonquin Park, I got an itch for a hike. I just couldn't drive through another park and not at least do one hike. So I picked a shorter one that still had a viewpoint, and I stopped. It felt so good to get out and be in the forest again, and to look out over the vast landscape of my home province. I'm never disappointed with a stop in Algonquin, and plan on returning to complete a lot more of these trails in the future. After such a great time on Lookout Trail, I was ready to complete my drive home. A few hours later, at dinner time, I did arrive home. As much as coming home is often hard, I was ready this time. I hadn't realized how much this trip had drained me until I was actually sitting on my couch and finally able to relax. The whole trip had been go, 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 and full of challenges and emotional healing work. And being safe and sound in my own home, that's when it hit me how tired it had all made me. I had no time for rest, though, as I returned to work at 6 a.m. the next morning. But over the next week, I slowly unpacked and let myself get some of the rest I really needed. Although there were many things that made this trip difficult and not always pleasant, I would do it all over again. It really is all part of the adventure of traveling, and it makes for great stories and memories. And it grows me in ways that easy and simple never will. On this trip, I learned to be patient, adaptable, and that I needed to take time to work on healing, which I had been putting off due to just being so tired. There are many things that I missed out on experiencing, but I can always go back and try again another day. What I did get to experience was what I needed at this time in my life to be able to heal from the previous season and move on to the next one.